Hey there guys, how are you? Welcome back to another awesome video, and it's time for my very first annual Halloween special. So today's first annual Halloween special is going to be a movie review, and a specific movie review, and that movie review is going to be Trick or Treat. So Trick or Treat, it follows 4 to 5 different stories and tales on the same night, Halloween night. So that's the main premise to sort of kind of give you guys. Everything else we're gonna have to really get into depth and detail and everything. This is gonna be a big review. This is gonna be a spoiler review, and there's gonna be a big discussion. Not a big discussion, but I'm gonna really go deep and dive into the little details that I really appreciate with this movie because of how much I really love this movie. Like, you have no idea. In terms of my favorite Halloween movies, my favorite horror movies, this is one of my new favorite classics to watch on Halloween. So this movie is directed by Michael Dougherty, and if that name sounds familiar to you, he directed the second Godzilla, King of the Monsters, recently this year. He also directed Krampus, so definitely he's got that familiarity with like maybe monsters and supernatural and horror and that sort of like concept and those ideas. But this was his first movie he did that I'm aware of, at least, because before he did this movie, I think he did a little animated short called Season's Greetings, so that's where kind of that came from. So this movie kind of got inspiration from this little animated short called Season's Greetings. You guys should really check it out. It's very small. It's like 3 minutes long. It's really subtle. It's really sweet. It's really awesome. But that's definitely awesome. That has some things that kind of dive into in terms of that has to do with this movie. So from here on this point, if you have not seen Trick or Treat, I definitely recommend it to you guys because it is really worth something. It's really worthwhile. To be honest, it's definitely something different, something new. It feels fresh, even for something that's a decade old, because supposedly this was released. Technically, this was released theatrically in 2007, but it at one point there's a story where it was supposed to be in theaters. It was supposed to have a theatrical release, and it never had a theatrical release because it was put in theaters and it just went straight to DVD within 2009. So 2009 was technically the release of when this movie came out. So follow up a decade later or so to basically its 10-year anniversary in a kind of way. Maybe its 12th-year anniversary, but still very relevant, still fitting, all that fun jazz. So if you have not seen this, I recommend it. It's definitely worthwhile, definitely worth checking out. So if you have not seen it, make sure you pause this and then go check it out. If it's still on TV, I don't know if it's still on TV by after October 31st. Maybe November 1st, I don't know. But if it is, go check it out, come back, we're going to discuss a lot of stuff about it. Because there's a lot to really take in with this movie, and how deeper it really is. Because this is a movie that, like with your sort of horror movie, you have a good balance of a great slasher antagonist, or antagonist, depending on if there's more than one, obviously, main slasher villain. And then you got your human characters that you can relate to and have sympathy for, and you can, like, sort of see your position, like, see yourself in that position, and just sort of relate to, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this was a great performance by a human character, and stuff like that. And obviously with this movie, it does a great balance of that. But it kind of really takes the idea of Halloween and sort of like there's like the traditions behind it and all these other little things that kind of goes into it, whether it's lore, I guess, and it's sort of folk lore a little bit. So that's really a nice little nod there. It really takes ideas of how traditionally how Halloween used to be, that you keep your jack-o'-lanterns on until Halloween night. You obviously dress up in costume, trick-or-treating. Also the little custodies that we've come used to at this point that were kind of considered tradition now are just become custom to us. So just all those little things like that is a nice little nod. the way everyone acts in this movie, like, because not only do you have like human characters that give great performances by said actors and actresses, but they really make it sort of very twisted, and it's a really cool sort of different side to these human characters, because with a horror movie you usually have your typical like female character or male character that's either like out of college, in high school, something human related, and it's just kind of like, okay, it's just a normal human person. This movie, however, you have sort of normal human characters, but they really aren't so normal. It's hard to explain, but it's really genius how this movie is directed, how it's acted, how it's just shot. It's very just amazing. You just take in every little thing. And the best part about this, that this movie does give, is all these little tales interwove really successfully and really cohesively. And it's so amazing how they all put it all together into like where you have the beginning also shows up at the end, and the end is also the beginning of the story. It's really genius because these little stories that interwove with each other and connect in a non-cinematic universe never work. They never work that much. But this one was done so brilliant. It's just so brilliant. From start to finish, it's hard to find anything to really depict, to nitpick, anything bad really, to be honest. From first shot number 1 to shot number 2. Because it all comes together so well. The score is beautiful. The intro sequence with the art, the comic strips is really awesome, because apparently this movie has got a cult following. It's got a cult following where it's got comics, it has it's got obviously its own little cartoon short, it is dying for a sequel, and all these other things that people love about it. And it's become a Halloween Horror Night scare zone. It became a haunted house. I own that t-shirt with said Trick or Treat Universal Halloween Horror Nights. I may not be wearing it now, but I've worn it before in my previous reviews, so I'll leave links in the description on those videos and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just so put together well. Now, let's get into more of the details and the specific little things here and there with each little story. So let's kind of do this from beginning to end a little bit. I might mix things up a bit by throwing in like, oh, I'm going to go to this story instead and not go in chronological order. So just kind of keep things coherent and sort of like cohesive. So let's go with the first story. The first story we see is a principal. We see a principal. His name is Principal Wilkins. His name played by Brian Cox. If the actor is familiar to you, he was Kurt Connors in the Sam Raimi movies. So that's where maybe people might be like, oh, I recognize that guy. So with him, he's just like an average dad, just kind of like, okay, he shows up back to his house. He sees a kid stealing his candy, like leaves out and everything. So you think, okay. You start to see how he interacts with his son, how he's very like annoyed with him, like he's very pissed, like he wants to strangle him, and like the funny thing about this is that at first he low key accidentally murders a kid by giving him because the kid eats bad candy, and all of a sudden he just spills and spews out this like the rotten candy, and he's like, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna think I'm a murderer. And he hides the body in this whole little thing where he's like, I'm this innocent principal. Ironically enough, he's not innocent. That's kind of the sort of like, they flip characters a little bit. Like, okay, they are these human characters, but because it kind of goes with the idea that it's Halloween, things are gonna get crazy, things are gonna get wild. This is the time of the night where everyone gets to do basically whatever the hell they kind of want, because it's like, oh, let's go party, let's do this, let's do crazy stuff like that, sort of thing. For a movie to do that in the real life, I don't know, but enough about that. So you got him and how he is with the son. And you think he wants to strangle his son. You think he's going to murder him. And it builds up this suspense. you could feel. Like, it's very, like, you can feel the chills, you can feel the eeriness, you can feel the quiet moments where you're thinking, oh my god, he's gonna murder his own son, but yet you could feel there's a father-son thing a little bit, because the kid's like, oh dad, let's do this, let's do that, let's have fun, and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, this poor kid. And you get to the moment where it was all just about a pumpkin carving, and that's not even the best part, that's not even the funny part. The sort of dark, twisted humor this movie does is they take the head of the kid from earlier that was basically sick and buried in the ground, and he's the pumpkin. So they're basically carving into him, and you can see it. And the son starts to basically come along too, because it's like Psycho Family, you know? Right? You know? So that alone sets up the sort of, not really the bar, but it sets kind of like this idea of where this is going. And just then we get to our next sort of our next story, which involves 3 to 4 like basically high school, college girls. They want to party, they're gonna have a good time, they're gonna want to like basically have fun with them, like basically get dressed up, get like basically wanting to do something. It's because like, hey, it's Halloween. And one of the girls, who's a sister, played by Anna Paquin, Rogue from X-Men. She's younger. She's like, oh, I'm kind of worried about because this is her first time. And you're thinking, oh, they're basically just gonna have sex and all these other things, and they're just looking to do some fun like that. And it kind of turns into something different. And when you rewatch this movie and you rewatch this specific story, you could see and feel the sort of like, not only the references but the foreshadowing. The foreshadowing is really good too, because you have a line where there's the blonde sister wearing the Cinderella dress, and she's knocking on her sister's like dressing room because they're getting costumes and they're getting ready for Halloween, trick-or-treating, whatever they're doing. They're picking up dates, stuff like that. So she knocks on the door, and then she's like, don't make me come in there. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down, sort of things. And then, sure, the funny thing is that, oh yeah, Anna Paquin comes out, she's a little red. But if you rewatch this and you watch this story, like rewatch it, and you hear everything, you start to pick up the idea that, oh, these chicks were werewolves. So it wasn't all about like first time having sex or anything like that. It was just basically murdering the hell out of these guys, and they all turn into wolf women basically. It's kind of really cool, and even the practical effects of it and the sort of the transformations look very, not genuine, but you could see it's not CG'd or anything. You could see the little details slowly coming in, the ripping of the skin, the fur coming on, the makeup, the little lines, the little wrinkles, the teeth, the fangs, the pointy ears. You could see all these little details come in to play, and not this sort of like over CG effect. And even the idea of like they use the wolves as like animatronics or puppetry looks awesome. I love how this movie is practical. I don't know what the budget for this movie was, but this is practical, and you could tell. And it's really good. And I'm a sucker for practical effects. I like how technology has come a long way, but the practical effects are great. There's some prosthetics and makeup that still hold up to me, in my opinion. So this is where things interwove a little bit. So remember that principal guy before? So he winds up being this masked like phantom vampire bloodsucker, and he's basically murdering these women because he says to his son he has a date later after they're carving the pumpkin. So he goes out, and you see this mass murderer basically, and he's biting on the women, getting banged and everything, like really sinking his teeth and stuff like that. And we see this guy, we see him unmasked, and it was the principal. So then you realize, oh, he had a date with, okay. So you start to see that. And then you have you have Red and a Paquin all of a sudden basically just bite on him and just maul at him and everything. So when we then get to the end of the movie, we see that the little kid, the principal's son, wearing his suit, wearing his glasses, sitting out on the porch waiting for his dad, he doesn't realize his dad's not coming back. So, hence sort of like how things are interwoven. But there's one particular character that interwoves this movie so brilliant. So let's talk about Sam. So, it's never said that his name is Sam, but to fans of this movie, to fans of this director, to the comics, and all this other stuff that goes, like, basically the background information on Trick or Treat in a way, is there's a little trick-or-treater. The little trick-or-treater with the little brown sack, orange costume, has a lollipop, like, knife shank thing. We've kind of referred to him as Sam. He never has a name, but that's sort of the brilliance, is you never know what this character is called. He doesn't have a name. You can't refer to him as it, but you just like, it's a good, mysterious build-up to his character, because he shows up in each little story. He shows up in the beginning of the movie where this couple's coming back from a party, and this one chick's like, oh, I hate Halloween, and everything. And there he is, standing there. He watches and just stares. And he goes and murders her. He murders her with his lollipop, so the lollipop's in her mouth, and has her, like, hung on, like, one of those little decoration little crosses. So he does that to the girl. He's sitting there watching the werewolf chicks basically eat the principal alive. He's sitting there on a log like, okay, I could get used to this idea. He also is there for when the kids go back to, because then we have the story with the kids and the school bus massacre. He's there watching. He's coming down to the edge of the cliff where the girl, what was her name? Yolanda, the one witch chick, who's kind of like, oh my gosh, like, she's like, the way she says her name to the one guy, it's kind of funny because she's like, oh my gosh, this guy likes me and all these other things. You kind of pick up this idea that she's very shy and has a very impressive intelligence about Halloween. So she goes on about, oh yeah, technically Halloween was called this back in the day of, like, Puritans and stuff like that. And you're kind of like, huh, there's a lot to this chick than we knew. And she's kind of crazy, because then we realize that she leaves basically the bad kids. And what does this all have to do with Sam? And then there's an old man and everything at the end of the movie. What does this all have to do with Sam? It seems like this Sam character is like the embodiment of Halloween. He likes the sort of traditions of trick-or-treating, the decorations, and all these other things. But if you screw up with the rules, that's where he's like, hey, that's not how traditions work, and you're kind of basically destroying almost like what is almost like a religion to me, in a way. So he's like the entity of Halloween, and ironically enough, he's a pumpkin head. He's literally looks like as if Jack Skellington's son, well, not Jack Skellington, but how he's the Pumpkin King. So this is like if Sam was his son, or something like that. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah. So you really see, not that you can relate, but you see this antagonist's ideal of how he kind of works, and it's never explained. You kind of think here. You kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, and this is one of those movies, and this is one of these moments that sometimes you have to interpret things your own way, and therefore it makes it more better and more brilliant too. Because then you start to pick up the pieces of the puzzle. Sam was there for when the school bus left basically the street, causing basically these sort of special needs kids that are dressed up in Halloween costumes chained to their seats, and they're being taken to, like, the edge of a cliff where they're gonna die because this bus driver was paid to murder these kids. Their parents paid the guy to say, hey, look, we want you to get rid of not necessarily get rid of our kids, but Yeah, it's kind of it's crazy. It's this really crazy, bizarre, psychotic movie a little bit when you really break down everything. But it's in like in the best, not in best ideals, but it does it like the stories work so good and it works so deep and how it everything just comes together. But anyways, enough about repeating myself. So that bus driver is the old man that we see later on that Sam basically just torments, going around writing, like, all of a sudden he carves like all over his room saying trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. He has that in his room. He stabs him with a Snickers bar, because like there's like a Snickers bar that has like a little like knife in there, and he stabs him. He has a lollipop for a weapon. He is a pumpkin dude, so whenever he gets cut, you see the little seeds and the little like whatchamacallit, the not the weeds in him all of a sudden just reattach him and sort of like connect back to his body. It's so cool. And this character is so mysterious that there's no backstory to him, and even if there is in the comics or whatever, it's so like mysterious. You get an idea that this is a character that's otherworldly and you don't want an explanation for it. It's one of those characters that you get an explanation on why he does what he does and who he is, it kind of doesn't feel as fun. But because he's this small little kid, you expect, oh, he's just this innocent little trick-or-treater, and he's just some reason murdering people. But then you start to pick up together what and why he's doing this. You see that, oh, the principal kind of murdered a kid. He also was killing women. He killed young teenagers by biting on them with the fake fangs. So therefore, as sort of, I guess, punishment, the werewolves start to maul at him, and they start to like basically chew on him and feast on his flesh and everything. You have the kids that go to pay visit to the school bus massacre, and they're all pranking the girl. They're all pranking the witch girl. That like, oh, she's just a nerd. They're being bullies, while the one dude's like trying to be nice, and everyone else is basically being rude to her. So they get their punishment through like, oh, the girl dressed as the witch, Yolanda leaves, and she's like, bye-bye, as she watches everyone that tormented her throughout this night get killed by the zombie bus massacred kids. Because they all come back all like very rugged and dirty and decayed almost, and very wretched and smelly, and you can tell they just climbed out of a sewer or they came back from the dead just for this one night. So they come back to get back at those kids because they're like, oh, you're making fun of our story, and that everyone thinks is a myth, but it was really true, that this legend was true to happen. So Sam's there watching it. Sam's the one that's watching this principal get mauled. Sam's the one that murders that one blonde from the beginning of the movie. He is also the one that almost kills the old man, because the old man was the bus driver. So he goes back and does that thing. But even when he has the opportunity to kill him, he doesn't kill him. And that kind of really makes things even more interesting. And the way everything builds up. Each story has a good build-up. How Anna Paquin's being basically like stalked by this this perverted like predator almost. So this very weird sicko that we find out is the principal. So you kind of think, oh yeah, this dude's a molester. So he was gonna basically molest this girl. Get the hell out of here. So you have that, and Sam watches as this dude gets punished. He watches as the kids get punished, but he lets the old man go. And here's why. So he lets the old man go. For a strange reason. You're thinking to yourself, this is odd. So the suspense is that he's ready to he's like crawling towards him and everything, and he just stabs him, and you're like, that's it? He has a broken arm and all these other things, and you just stab him. But it all has a nice payoff, because later Sam looks back at his house, and the old man is in shock. He's in fear of this kid. And that's the other genius about this antagonist. Not only is this guy mysterious, this creature, and you don't know what is he, where did he come from, you just know that he's got this pumpkin face, the makeup's good on him, like how he looks like this pumpkin kid, basically. The costume, while looking like a very like stitched up costume that just was made just for Halloween, it adds to like the character, how it's very stitched up. It looks very unique. The colors are interesting a little bit with the, like, maybe it's a mesh brown bag, but it's kind of interesting how it's like the little button eyes, the little pockets here and there. How like you think to yourself, sort of like deception almost. How this little kid, you're thinking, oh, this is just a silly little kid. What a cute costume. When you see that he murders these people, you're like, there's something weird with this guy. And then we see him unmasked, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not a kid. Taking a concept that's done before, but making it almost unique. The concept of taking something cute and innocent and making it your killer, making it your something evil, making it sinister, making it cruel. Has been done before. You see it in Chucky. You see it with It, because a clown is something like, you think, oh, it's something silly. Now it's this horrifying as hell thing that now people are afraid of clowns. So yeah, but this is one that kind of works, and it's not too much of a cliche for a character like Sam. And I just adore this character so much. Like, seriously, I really do. So we get to the ending where all of a sudden we see in the beginning of the movie the blonde chick and her date, coming back saying she does the whole I hate Halloween. We see that also at the end. So he goes on to do that thing, but here's where he gets it. So here's where Sam basically plots and has his revenge and has his sort of punishment for the old man. Because everyone basically is getting payback. Someone's getting revenge for something they did wrong for Halloween. And the old man's punishment is the little trick-or-treaters that he murdered come back to him. All rugged and wretched and smelly and all dead and everything. Ready to knock on his door, open door, and basically they're asking for candy. One says trick-or-treat, and they just haul at him. They just grabbing him, pouncing on him, doing whatever to him. And this is kind of like all basically one big thing where Sam's just like, I've put this all together and interwove this all together, so now everyone gets their just desserts and everything. And this is why this and all the other reasons why this movie is so genius. And it really has become one of my new favorite movies. Because I remember when I first saw this movie, and being in shock and awe and everything coming to my head, like, that happened and that and this and I was blown away by something that I never would have expected from an unknown director I did not know at the time, Michael Dougherty. Bryan Singer has a producer part in this, and I'm used to his X-Men films, but seeing him kind of produce this doesn't really give him that much credit, but props to him, that's for sure. Now he's doing other stuff, but still, props to him. But definitely the director gets the more credit, because obviously with a guy like Michael Dougherty, definitely seems like he knows how to tell, like, whether it's a scary story or not, he knows how to tell stories involving monsters. And whether it's making them sympathetic or relatable or not does not matter. It's just the moralities they have behind them. They don't need to be sympathetic and relatable. You could just still see their moralities without feeling sympathy or relating to them. You don't have to say that, oh, I could totally relate to Sam. No, you don't. No one's gonna relate to that character. That dude's a psycho. He's a little trick-or-treating psycho. So you're not gonna relate to a guy like that. You're not gonna relate to this little creature. But you can see why he did what he did. If that makes any sense. Not having a relatability, but you see the morality of it. And it's a deeper morality. So this guy really knew how to tell a story with creatures and monsters and all this sort of stuff. But I just remember being shocked by it. And this was my fourth, if not my fifth time watching this movie. And now it's become this thing where I have to watch it every year. I love watching this movie on Halloween. I went to the Halloween Horror Nights last year. Definitely was worth it. I don't care what happened back there. It was worth it. And I love the fact I went to that trick-or-treat haunted house. It was awesome. It was worth it. I got a t-shirt. I own that t-shirt. So that's even better as well. So I love that t-shirt too. Sam has become one of my favorite Halloween characters, and this is kind of one of those earlier horror movies that kind of gives me hope that horror is not a dead genre, no pun intended, because to me sometimes horror, you've got your classics, like obviously your Halloween, your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Child's Play, your Friday the 13th, you got new classics that are going to be considered classics, like Pet Sematary, not the new one, but definitely the older Pet Sematary. It's definitely going to be a horror classic. All these other things, like The Babadook, and all these other horror movies that have become classics, Poltergeist, The Exorcist, I say Friday the 13th? Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, all these horror classics, you have those. But for me, in recent years, horror has not done well. I feel like horror is a failing and decreasing genre, because just for many reasons, and because of the many failed horror movies I've seen in recent years, just makes me think that horror is just not being as suspenseful as it used to be. Because it used to be about tension. It used to be that build-up of what's going to be coming around the corner. What's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't expect the unexpected. With now horror movies, you expect, oh, here comes a jump scare. Oh, that was a jump scare. You expect those things. And then when you see the jump scares, you expect them, and they become repetitive, you start to realize they're not as effective as they used to. So it loses its effect. But when you build up tension, when you build up these sort of moments where you're like, you have no idea what is going to happen next, because one thing could happen, but another thing can happen. So literally your mind is like, where's this gonna go? So this is one of those movies that definitely you didn't know what was gonna happen next. And it definitely left you on the edge of, it definitely left me on the edge of my seat. This is just one of my new favorite Halloween movies, one of my new favorite horror movies. I think it's gonna be a Halloween classic. It's definitely got a cult following. It's got so much potential out there. It's dying for a sequel. It doesn't need a franchise, but it's definitely could and should deserve at least a sequel, because there's so much to do, and there's so much more, and there's so much talks of a sequel. So it's just bound to happen, and there's so much popularity with it nowadays that I feel like it could happen. And this movie has definitely got that revisit ability where you're gonna rewatch this more and again and again and again and pick up on things, because once you watch it once, it's fantastic, but once you keep watching it again, it becomes better and better. You pick up on the little details and the little things thrown in, like I've mentioned, that make it more genius, that make it more very, like, this is something very, this feels different, this feels like a breath of fresh air. This really did, for a movie that came out over a decade ago. I'm gonna give Trick or Treat an A+. Hope you guys enjoyed this big review, spoiler review discussion. I hope you guys saw this movie. If you did, let me know, what is your favorite moment in Trick or Treat, and what is the reason why you love Halloween, or what is something you do on Halloween? Let me know in the comments. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please smash the like button. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I do awesome videos every day, if not every week. I know it's been a while since I've done a review, but a lot has been going on this week. Next week I'm gonna be busy as hell, so it's gonna be hard to put out stuff. The only thing I can really do right now is gameplay. I might put up a review tomorrow. I definitely gonna put up a review for tomorrow. But once Monday hits, it's gonna be a little bit hard to kind of get something in. I'll explain like more on what's going on, of why I'm gonna be basically like hiatus for an entire week, and why I've been hiatus this week and next week. So more on that once sort of the week's over. But if you want to check out my last video, I've been doing like a series on Batman Telltale series. So to sort of give you guys a better idea from my words, so that way it's not like this is awkward sort of no commentary. I've done screen recordings of the Batman Telltale series, and I've done it two different versions of the story. I've done one version that has commentary and one that doesn't. One story that's very like awkward, but in a funny way awkward, or at least to me, I thought this was funny. And then one that's gonna be a lot more serious taken. So the awkward one is gonna be no commentary. I might add commentary to it, but we'll see. If you want to hear commentary, let me know. But the other series, the more serious one, is gonna have commentary. So if you want to check those out, I'll leave annotation at the end of this video. We shall see what happens. I hope you guys had a happy Halloween, and I look forward to hopefully doing this maybe more yearly, like these annual Halloween specials. I would have done a vlog for Halloween, but there's all sorts of stuff on why I didn't do that. But I hope you guys had a happy Halloween. Maybe let me know what you guys did for Halloween. If you guys went trick-or-treating, if you guys went out maybe to haunted houses, maybe you just sat home watching horror movies, let me know. Something cool, something fun. Let's get scary, let's get eerie, I don't know. So maybe I'll do this more often yearly. Definitely next Halloween, I'm going to have more Halloween-related reviews, so look out for more Halloween horror-related stuff. I might have like maybe 1 or 2 other reviews involving Halloween horror after this, so that gives you guys a heads up. But every other Halloween review will be next year. Maybe I'll throw in some horror movies here and there, but most likely all the Halloween stuff will be saved for next October, and there'll be more Halloween reviews and more horror reviews. That's for sure for next year. So I've done so just to recap, for this year I've done reviews of this movie, Trick or Treat. I did Nightmare Before Christmas. I did Coraline, and I think I might did another one. I can't remember. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.